Welcome back to another Inktober day 17. Today's prompt is Ornate, and I had in mind to do the Master Sword from The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and to mix in The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past. You'll see when you if you watch the video. So yeah, let's get to it. Let's stop the yap and let's get to drawing. Doing something a little different today out in the office. Joking aside, this is our garage, but I do a lot of work out here. Used to airbrush a lot out here actually, and got all my music stuff out here. Anyway. So today is Inktober, day 16, I believe it is. Ornate is the prompt, and I could think of nothing other to do than the one and the only Master Sword from The Legend of Zelda. And I do have a reference. Went ahead and grabbed myself a reference for the Master Sword. Now, it may not be the most ornate sword, but it's ornate enough to me, and I also think it looks sweet, so I'm going to use it. I'm also going to use the one from the 64 because, although my favorite actually, I think, is from Link to the Past, it was very pixelated. So the only way I can really do that is to use blue ink and try to throw in some of the blue highlights that I remember it being. It was sort of a sky blue though, so like almost a cyan or something like that. It's kind of hard to replicate that with the inks that I have, but that's okay. I'm just trying to spirit of Inktober. In case you're wondering, I'm going to use that and try to make it as interesting as possible. The real thing that made it ornate to me wasn't just the jewel in the inside or like how it's the guard is on it. It's more that it was a skyish blue that would glow in Link to the Past, which was really cool to me anyway. I always thought it was really cool. I need somewhere to put this thing though. Guess we're gonna have to go with that. Don't really have anywhere else. One thing about being out here is I don't have a lot of places to put stuff. Oh, I have something. This is it. It's a little phone holder that my wife got, I think probably from Temu, to be honest. I'm not sure, but that shall have to do. I'm gonna have to look over my shoulder to look at it, but that's okay. Got my old trusty Staedtler pencil here. Let's see, and it's been a while since I drew on this easel, so I think I'll just start with a stone in the center. It's like a gem, so the sword kind of comes down on both sides here on the guard. Yeah, it comes over slightly on both sides and it cuts down. Now this game was pivotal. This game was pivotal for the era, man. This was when I was still in like middle school. This is like definitely dating me, but we were all waiting for this game. Well, all of us nerds that like video games, just waiting so much for this game to come out for so many years that by the time it came out, I was almost kind of like almost a little disappointed in the game's graphics actually at first, because what they had kept showing for so long, and of course the game isn't all graphics, but you got to remember this is mid 90s and PlayStation's starting to ramp up and you have stuff like Doom and stuff. So it's like you want to have something that represents a similar style, like in terms of quality. And like anyway, my first impression was none too impressed at first. It took some time because I realized that the sheer size of the game made it kind of difficult for them to do the same level of graphics they were doing in the magazines and stuff, but it also kind of felt a little misleading. Sorry, my throat's a little scratchy. It felt misleading because they had kept talking about how awesome the 64 was going to be, and a lot of the games up until that point were really good, considering you got to think about the time. PlayStation, I had a PlayStation also. At one point I had a PlayStation, then I traded it for a 64 because I had played a lot of PlayStation games and I wanted a 64 and they didn't have any when they came out. So I started on the PlayStation, which I happen to love, and if I could have kept them both I would have, but I was not exactly swimming in money. So I just decided, I talked to my mom, said, is it cool if I trade my PlayStation for the 64? Because she's the one that actually bought the thing for me, and she was cool with it. She's like, as long as you're fine with it, I don't care. It's your system. So I did, and I'm glad I did because I got to play, all the games I wanted to play, like GoldenEye and Mario and all that stuff. And I'm not lining this up right. But all that, I like I said, when they were talking about the 64 when it came out, before it came out, they're like, man, this is going to be the greatest system ever to rival like, your home computer. And at the time, most of us didn't have graphics cards in their computers. And even those that did were still ready to try out the 64, man. They're like, man, they're keep talking this thing up. But for them to produce a system that they're promising was going to cost a lot more money than $300. So, of course, that's not what we ended up with. We ended up with a polygonal-based graphic system, which is very similar to the PlayStation, but not nearly as robust as they pretended it was going to be. It was kind of a old bait and switch situation. This is going to be very interesting to ink on, by the way. There is a lot of shading in here and some highlights and stuff, and it's also in the, I know I'm jumping around, remember ADHD, it's also in the Temple of Time, same game, right? So, which I think is actually the coolest part of this game is the Temple of Time. It's very, I don't know, it makes it feel kind of serene, sort of surreal as well, because in this game's lore you're actually getting to see the work of the gods, which is very interesting. You don't, in other words, you kind of have proof, not to offend anybody, I'm just saying, you have proof that these gods existed, and that they're not just lore. So the Temple of Time proves that because of all the things in the game, stealing away there's always a Triforce in Zelda games, or at least up until this point, until quite a few of them. I don't know. I honestly haven't actually played Breath of the Wild much because I don't have a Switch or a Switch 2 that's coming out. I don't even know if that's out. I don't even know. See, I don't even know. I don't know if Switch 2 is out. Is it out? It's coming out? I don't remember. I just play games on my PC now. Kind of ironically, where you start where you end. No, I started on NES, like pretty much. Well, actually, that's not true. My brothers had a ColecoVision when I was a kid and like Atari and stuff. That's not big enough. Yeah, like I said, it just kind of felt a little bamboozled at first. But then once I got to play the game, I'm like, okay, I can forgive the graphic. Then I kind of fell in love with them. Like, it's just because of the beginning of the game. I saw it at I had it on pre-order because I really wanted it. So I put a few dollars down. At this point, I was able to buy my own stuff, and I had pre-ordered the game. I had a little bit of cash, not a lot. I wasn't like, babysitting and stuff like that. And so I took some of my money that I hate and I used that to put down on the game. And then I was so committed, man, because we started in 7th grade. We were hearing about this game coming out. So by the time this game actually came out, I was ready to play it. I was kind of committed at that point. I'm like, at this point, I just gotta see it through, see if it's worth anything. It was worth the money. This game was amazing for the time. It still is, but like people still swear by this game. They re-released it so that a whole nother generation of kids could play it. I don't know. It's like, it's a money grab. I mean, it is. It's a business, but I'm glad they did it because it's not like you could just run out and grab a 64. And kids don't want to go backwards in technology. They always want to see forward. I mean, that's just how people are. So you get older and you get nostalgic and you're like, oh, I miss my games. But I have a weird memory for things, and I tend to not be as nostalgic as I used to be when I was younger. But now, as I've gotten older, that sounds funny to say that. When I was younger, it's more sentimental than I am now. I used to keep stuff because we used to move around a lot, and I think that's part of it. And I think honestly, music and video games always stayed the same, so it kind of felt like a home base as much as we moved around. Now I know that this is a polygon computer-generated image, and I'm not probably doing it any justice, but I'm not trying to make it look absolutely perfect. I'm just drawing something I like. This is actually much sharper here than I'm giving it credit for. This point here actually goes right about here. So I'm just going to use that. That's a bit sharper. There we go. Moving my mic stand too much. Sorry. And this is also a little on the high side. That's a bit better on the left. It's a very simple drawing, so like I just trying to make it look a little bit better than it was. That's close enough to me. Let me just paint one parallel these lines. That's pretty close. Okay. Anyway, this game finally came out, and it was 96 when we heard about it, and it took to it was 95 when I heard about it, and it took to 98 for it to actually release in the fall. So for 3 years, it was already in development for I don't know how long before that. So it takes time for games to be developed, even with big teams, and even to this day, because they just keep getting bigger. And so oh, that's right. There's that whole floor plan behind it. Anyway, it took years for us to see it, so a lot of expectation, a lot of hope. I remember seeing screenshots of it too, and like Nintendo Power, and thinking like kind of disappointed in the graphics. Like I said, one of the images, I don't know why, it just kind of made me feel weird, like gave me almost like a depressed feeling. Like, I can't even put it into words why. I just remember feeling like, what happened to the other graphics? Because they kept showing like this very different look to it, but nonetheless, they did a great job. It's just me. It was me being my expectations were something else. It's an awesome game though. It really is. Oh, and also, when and I'm just talking about this game's franchise, when they first came out with when they came out with Wind Waker, I was like, oh god, cartoon graphics, I don't know. And then I started playing it, and I was like, instantly got you, because it did the same thing. I was like, well, I had an expectation. I'm like, well, now I'm a little bit older. Let's not have that same expectation. Let's just keep an open mind and see how it works. See what this is all about. This is really interesting, the way that they have this. This has sort of a spiral pattern to it for the graphic, the way the light's hitting it. And about most of this is shaded. Some highlights in there, but there's sort of a gradient here, a little bit of shading here. And then of course this is really dark around the outside edges of it. As I mentioned, I'm also a game developer and haven't been developing much lately. Just been doing music, and this kind of took a break again. I feel like it's just a necessity of being a game developer. You kind of just like back away from it. Now in the Temple of Time and in the forest and everywhere else the sword is, it's always got some beam of light coming down on it. So here the point of light is more or less to the left, and you can see there's a bunch of windows in there, but there's one window that shines down, I believe, from the backside, or it might be on multiple sides, but I know for sure there's one that is illuminating the sword and sort of off center. That's why it looks this way. But trying to see if I should hint the light, or just there's also a lot of texture in here, and these are dark because it's in stone. I'm gonna ink all this up, but I'm just doing this just to placeholder. It's not too terrible. I know I say that a lot, but I really am saying like it's not the worst thing I've done. Just trying to make sure it's super perfection, you know? If I wanted to be absolutely perfect about it, I could. I mean, I could take a ruler to it, but I think the whole freehanding thing is the point for me. That's more or less right. I can always come back in and highlight the whites too. With white, I can try doing blue because why not? But I think I just need to make sure the background looks good. I mean, I could do like a hint. I don't have to do all of them. I can have the concrete. These are like cinder blocks back here, believe it or not, for where this is. They're meant to be stone, I suppose, but they look a lot like cinder block. That's right. I thought so. Okay, so the center of this floor is just like this is sitting in the center of the Trifork. If you didn't know, this is the Trifork. So it's set in such a way that you can see the top of the triangle or the bottom of the top triangle over here. That's I'm a little on the crooked side here, but whatever. And so at the angle it's at, you're not seeing the whole triangle, but it's just the way that the angle is of this picture. So and then it comes down sort of like in front. I think that's cool. There are pillars back here, right around this region. So I think I'll do that just for the sake of, these are a little high. That's all right. I'll just do it myself the way I want to do it. I'm going to line it up this way. I'll just give one hint. I'm not trying to go fully ornate here. Well, it is ornate, isn't it? I'm not trying to go full on for every pillar. I just want to do an impression of this one. What's funny is it's got like a, kind of like what you would think an altar is in the Temple of Time. And then within that, this is what's in the back of the building. There's not like, there's no people here. It's basically protected by a spell or by magic, however you want to think about it. Spell magic, you know what I'm saying? It's locked in place with only the person with the Triforce can open in the first one, that was true. In this version of the game, you have to get the pennants, which actually not pennants, it's been a long time. The sapphire stones come later. I mean the sage stones, or whatever they're called. There's always some progressive thing in Zelda games from Link to the Past on, where Link's Awakening is kind of an exception, I guess, but you eventually start out with like almost like a 3-set trial and you move on to like 9 dungeons or whatever the number ends up being. So you do 3, you go to a different kind of world, and then you do 9, and oftentimes having to go back and forth between them. The thing that usually changes is how you go back and forth. So they did that for a while. Wind Waker and, Majora's Mask, you have to fight against time in a different way. You have to keep resetting time with the changes that you've made staying saved, so to speak. All right, that's more or less what I wanted. Now, it's really hard to do this on this canvas, on this thing, because I can't really move the paper around like I'd like to. This is going to be an interesting experiment. Yeah, I forgot to do this side. Let me do this real quick. So this shall be interesting. I find it only fitting to use the Japanese nib for Japanese game. I don't have any kind of yellow. I wish I had a yellow ink. That'd be cool, because I could do this gold, whatever. I have paint. I might just have to do that. I was going to do this in blue, but I wonder if it would be easier or better to grab the paint markers, whatever I have left, and make those work. Or I could use the marker. I have markers somewhere. Now, the last time I tried the other the other ink, the Manga Ink, it blended out with the marker. It shouldn't do that, unless, of course, it's the same solvent. For the sake of argument, I'm going to do black first for the outlines, and then I might go back in with the blue, and if I have to, I'll touch up where I think the gold should be. Just in here, and not here. This is supposed to be black. There goes nothing. Much easier to paint on this. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, trying to do it on an angle like this instead of just doing it like on a flat surface. Pop's really hard. Trying not to be too shaky with this. I'm out here in the garage today because I'm hoping I can let my wife sleep in a little bit. Yeah, this is certainly easier to do on a flat surface. Just FYI. Trying to be a little bit more careful than that, but it's going to have a dark outline going around anyway, but I just figured, I'm not a really big, it has to be perfect kind of person, but trying to get this close because it's like, that's fine if I skip over like that. It's an iconic thing for gamers. All right, I am just making a mess. It's okay, I can wash that out, and plus I can use it as a background. It's fine. I wasn't really planning on doing the background like that, but this easel's actually sitting on part of my carpet that I have down there. It's the Spider-Man rug. I got a Spider-Man rug a while ago for my room, actually, for my computer. That was something, because the house has got hard flooring everywhere, and I like to have a rug under my feet when I'm working on my computer, but then we ended up not using it in there because I needed one for my drums. So my drum kit sitting behind this screen over here. It's just an E-kit, by the way. It's not anything fancy. It's a cheap little... It's a Simmons from, Guitar Center, I think, sells it. It's a fun little drum set, though. It does the job I need it to. I just hook it up to a VST or like basically a MIDI sampler so that it sounds like real drums instead of the stuff that comes with it, because the stock kit sounds like crap. But as just a basic trigger, like you would with like an 808 or whatever, where you just tap on the pads, if you use realistic drum sounds, it sounds better, right? So it's the same kind of thing. The only difference is I'm beating with sticks instead of my fingers. I do have an Akai, and I have actually had a, what was that, 8i8 or whatever it was called. It was similar to the traditional 808, but like 16 pads, because I was trying to do finger drums because I was in an apartment at the time, and even though it was Music City, Nashville, I didn't want to be a dick neighbor and bang on even electronic drums can be loud in an apartment, so I didn't want to do that. Okay. that's down. I'm going to do some of the shading. Now, I might shade, this whole thing might be blue, but the outside of it's going to be black, so if I can do this, right? And say what you will about this, but this is just something. In a Jitsu training, what they would do is, traditionally, they would always change the location where they were training so that they were never comfortable, so they can always expect unexpected kind of a thing. Like instead of a clean dojo with, they always do that in the movies where they're like in this really nice, pretty dojo, but reality is that's not how they would train for the most part. I mean, somewhat, sure, but they would usually go out to the middle of nowhere, some undisclosed location. They're not even telling you where you're going to be because you don't know where like there's a dip in the dirt or something like that, and so you're not prepared for it, so you might slip and fall. And so it just kind of teaches you to always be aware of your surrounding. The surroundings will kick your ass more than most people will. I mean, think about it. How many times you just walk in somewhere and just trip and fall over something and you ain't paying no attention? You trip over like a crack in the concrete or something like that. Like that's the point. How are you supposed to protect yourself? You can't even protect yourself from from a person. You can't even protect yourself from the environment around you. I bring that up because around that time I was studying a lot of martial arts. I studied a lot of stuff when I was younger. Mixed martial arts, traditional, boxing, like all of it, man. Like whatever I can get my hands on. Whatever was effective, that's what mattered to me. I didn't care about. When you're younger, or at least when I was, when I first started, of course, I was like, oh yeah, belts. But then after a while, you're like, that's kind of stupid when you think about it. It's not doing you any good. I've seen a black belt get his ass kicked, and I've seen somebody who's not really inexperienced. Maybe they get the better because they got arrogant, or maybe just because they're just a better fighter naturally. But having a belt don't mean anything. That's just a false sense of security right there. And actually, my instructor used to say that a lot. We only had, in my main martial art that I used to go to, only had a few belts, kind of like traditional Japanese style. Like we had, basically the belts were there because he had crossed over another class that he had. And funny part is, people think like, well, I'm a black belt. Like, okay, you studied for like a year and a half, 2 years. Like it takes 6 years there to get to your black belt. That's assuming you're going to pass your black belt test. A lot of people wouldn't stick it out that long. And, they get maybe to like, all it was 2 white, 2 blue, 2 brown, and then black, and then it went up because the belts don't mean anything. It's a bit hard to do that from this angle. I know I keep saying that, but my hand is really shaky over there. I don't mind shaky lines, but I mean, I'm like almost chicken scratching over here. Look at this. Trying to keep my hand from hitting this. Checking my time. Recording this on my iPhone, and like whenever I record too long, it doesn't want to save it. I mean, so that I can retrieve it on my computer, I have to send it to the cloud and then grab it from it's a hot mess because I don't have an Apple computer. I have a PC, and so I'm gonna have to mess with this. I can't do it that way. It's not the prettiest looking thing. I really want to pick this up and hold it. I can't get this to. I'm just gonna have to do this, I guess. Not a big deal. It's kind of Temple Ruins, right? But yeah, right around the time that I actually beat this game, took me forever, by the way, longer than I anticipated it would, because I usually beat Zelda games pretty quick, but this one took me a long time. And I found out I'm not the only person that got stuck on the water temple for the exact same reason. I thought everybody just thought it was hard because of all the levels, having to go back and forth. And that isn't it. The reason it was so frustrating is that most Zelda games give you a hint as to where to go in 3D space, but this was the first time we had a 3D Zelda game, and so it wasn't obvious to look underneath platforms and stuff sometimes, because the camera would switch to tell you like, hey, go here, go there, and you kind of got used to it. And then after a while, see, I'm making a damn mess, whatever. After a while, you get used to kind of motor set to how the game expects you to move forward. And so in the water temple, you get stuck because you don't think to look under this one floating platform. A room you've been into multiple times, you wouldn't think to go back into it, or at least most of us didn't. I actually had to look it up when I was at Walmart one day. I was like, you know what, I give up. I never used to look at magazines to look for like walkthroughs because I just wanted to do it on my own. I'm like, I give up, man. I don't know where this is. I'm frustrated. I need to just find an answer. I want to play the rest of the game. Sure enough, there's a platform that when you normally walk over it, you can't get underneath it because the water is at ground level. When it's all the way up to the top, you can get underneath it. You have to put your boots on, these heavy boots, whatever, and you go underwater, and there's like a hidden thing down there with a treasure chest. You wouldn't think to look down there. Like at the time, like I said, it was new to me and pretty much every one of us. I guess some people probably didn't get stuck there. They probably got stuck somewhere else. But it's so much so that there was a video recently that I seen on YouTube that somebody had mentioned, why was the water temple such a pain? And like, this is why. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. So yeah, I didn't pay for the magazine either. Screw that. I just wanted the one thing. See, traditionally, when you're airbrushing, you hold your other wrist and you can go much faster like this and hold steadier. But I wasn't thinking about doing that for some reason. That makes it faster, makes it easier and more stable. And you can float your hand, but I can't really float because I am not airbrushing. I have to touch the canvas, so, or you know what I'm saying. I want to say canvas because it's on the easel. Just looking for a point of reference to put my hand down. Let me scratch these up a little bit too then. These textures in the game aren't perfectly distributed either because there's limitations to textures, especially there's the amount of textures you could store in the game in a cartridge. So you could do the best you can with UV wrapping, and if you probably have no idea what the hell I'm talking about if you don't know anything about 3D modeling or games, but basically UV wrapping is sort of like an XY for texture. So like if it has a point, let's say from here to here to here to here, it knows knows to fill this whole little square out mathematically. And then it'll say, we'll use the texture, this texture using its X, Y coordinates, basically using UV. That's just a different way so that the variables are different names for lack of better explanation. Okay, that works, I guess. I'm gonna throw the black in here for the shade, then I'm gonna try to do blue. Looks sort of right. Yeah, that worked that time. The only other thing I need to do is probably grab a damn brush, because this is gonna take me forever to do by hand. So I might grab the brush, paint in these lines first, and dig it in really good. Let me just dry this up real quick. There we go. That's okay. I don't hate that. Just a little bit of texture in the white here, so it's not so much negative space. Not that there's anything wrong with negative space. I just, you know, it's supposed to be stone. So glad I did this in here. I normally mix in the room fine, right? This made a mess. What a reason the blue. This was on there tight enough. I mean, I don't know, maybe the thread just wasn't always sealed up or what. When I shook it, usually I was shaking it pretty violently, I guess. Anyway, went every damn where. It's like I washed it up pretty good, but no, it's leaking. The top is leaking, so just be aware of that. Store them upright and don't shake them too violently. So before I do the black, I'm gonna do the blue here and just gonna run with it. I know that's the silver in the picture, but I'm doing it blue to represent the Master Sword of A Link to the Past, which was my personal favorite. Suppose it still is. Now I did this as a wash, and I don't know how well this is gonna work. There we go. It's got a little bit of that gray in there. I didn't need half as much as I just used, but that's okay. I mixed the white and blue, by the way, to get this sort of like cerulean type blue. I might throw some black wash on that too. There's that. I was thinking about throwing this mix in there, but let me just see. So now I have a sky blue for something else. That's cool with me. Now I'm gonna hit the darker spots with this black. This brush was still just a little bit wet. I dried it off just now, but it's okay. I don't need it to be absolutely pure black because it's not. It's meant to be stone, so kind of like a granite black. I also don't mind the strokes in there because I like to paint, and I like paint strokes when I paint, so I think it gives it a little bit of life. It's funny too is when I pick this brush up, I like to paint with a larger brush because when I do paint, I tend to do like painterly or impressionist style stuff, and one of the tricks that I had picked up, if you will, was to use a brush larger than what you think you need. Sort of like when you're setting a timeline for yourself to get something done. I'm not painting that very well today. Anyway, you pick a bigger brush because it forces you to ignore detail or to kind of combine detail into something a little bit more broad. I am just making a damn mess of this right now. That works. It is a little lower than what I drew anyway, so it's not a big deal. And the reference, that is. I find the point of Inktober to be a challenge to oneself, so I do the same thing you're used to doing. I don't ever ink like this. Not with a brush, I can tell you that much, if that's not painfully obvious. That is what that is. And I can come back in here and hit that with some detail. This is taking a lot longer than I intended it to. And this will be the wash for the wall, which is why I didn't want to do too much detail. I planned on darkening this. I didn't know if it was going to be this dark, but it is what it is. It always dries a little lighter than it looks. Gives you that sort of mid-tone gray or somewhere around there anyway. It goes on almost like a brown and then it dries up to a gray, which is very interesting. This is the Manga Ink too, by the way. It's very, very different than the India ink. I mean, it should be obvious, but I mean, it's not. I didn't know what was going to be that much different about it. It actually has more of a brown tone to it. In this first pass, I'm just trying to get the color down, or the shade, or however you want to think of this. And it's all right if I get a little bit of this on the sword because there is quite a bit of shading on either side of it. And around I keep wanting to call it the guard, or the scabbard. I don't remember now. Where's the heart? Okay. So much it goes on like that brown tone, and then it dries up into that grayish brown almost, I guess. There was still some of that black on there from the India ink. So this is a different mixture, but it makes it interesting, I think. Just stepping back a bit to see if it looks okay. Is there anything I can do to make it any better? Making sure I'm going the right direction. So trying to give it some of that shading that's on this. I'll just go for more of that grayish blue tone on the hilt. Is that what I'm thinking of? Or is this the hilt? I don't remember. This way it makes the blade stand out more. At least that's my hope. I have to wait till it dries to really know, right? I could do with a little bit more blue than that, and whatever you want to call this, because I can't remember what the hell it's actually called. This is just kind of instinct, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm just doing whatever, and if it looks good, I'm cool with it. If not, let's just move on. Get some more darkness around here. I can leave it around here because I guess that it makes it look like it's glowing a bit, but right around here, I wanted to darken this up quite a bit. It'll run. Just a bit of a glow is fine. It doesn't have to be like really obvious. This stuff goes really, really far, I gotta say, because I've used this quite a bit. Not just the ink itself, but doing it as a wash goes really, really far. It's pretty cool. I mean, you can use this to tone your paper if you wanted to. Let it dry up. You can also wipe it off so there's not so much water sitting on it and like getting into the fibers and stuff, but I don't mind that too much because I'm not going back over it. But if you were, I suppose you might want to do that. Although this is Bristol, it's pretty strong. Even when it dries, like you can tear it up up, and you've got quite a bit of paper to go through before you're going to make any real damage to the paper, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Little gray tones in there just so it looks like it's a sword. So I have no way to do any kind of yellow, so I'm just going to use this and kind of what's already here. I think that's going to have to do it. I mean, it's kind of a cool effect to me. I mean, there might be a little bit of spots thicken up with some darken up, rather. And if you want to highlight this a little bit more, what I could do is actually darken this whole thing, and this inner gray should get a little bit lighter in comparison, but I think overall I'm okay with that. Yeah, it's going to work for me. That's the Master Sword in this Inktober day. I don't even know what day we're on now. 16. You made it this far. I really appreciate you hanging out, and let's see what we can do in the next one. Hold on, let me try one more thing. Just want to see if I can get this to darken up just a little bit. See, the water helps to blend it, obviously, but I just wanted to darken this up a little bit more, just to create the effect of a glowing sword. At least like glowing around the sword. I guess I could have done it blue, but that's okay. All right, make a break on this one. Just gonna see if I can put the blue back. Oh, there we go. That blue is so dark. Pretty. There we go. Actually using the cap, getting the blue out of that. This may not be the most ornate, but to me it was back in the day, so that's why I chose to do this one. There are other versions of it that are quite more ornate than this is, especially with the scabbard, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted this. This is my jam right here. You know, the sword and stone type thing. And blend that a little bit. Yeah, that's more fun. Some of that blue tint around here. Probably a little darker than I intended, but that's okay. Gotta mess around, man. The only thing about Nintendo though, man, they suck about fan art. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, you know, I can't sell this. Like if I do, how about you anything, I'm gonna get DCMA'd, because I've done that before. I actually drew painted a Link when he was in this game when he's a child. I painted that. You know, I used the reference, of course, so I could, but it looked like a painterly version of it, and everywhere I tried to put it, it was getting DCMA'd. Like, you get to hell, and that just means they're taking it down. If you don't know what that means, they're basically like a copyright strike, and like places like Redbubble don't like to play with that, and then you get your account shut down. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I wasn't really making many sales on Redbubble anyway, but I don't try it on Amazon. Like I did once, but I'm like, yeah, I may not do that again, because I have an Amazon merch account, and I tried to mess with that too much. That's a bit too abrupt, I think. Hang on. Oh, it's certainly glowing now. If it wasn't before, it is now. Like, listen, I'm all about intellectual property. I get it's yours, but like, I mean, it's just a painting. Like, what am I gonna make $10 on it? It's not gonna hurt your branding. It looked like Link. It's not like they sell tons of paintings or anything like that. I don't know. It's just, they're just kind of gatekeeping about the fan base, because it's a fan art. I mean, they very well could make money off of your fan art if they went through the proper channels, and you're like, but you know, they don't have that. So, some companies do. Some are cool with that. There we go. It's a little more glowy, and it's more to the color I was hoping for. So I'd like to be able to highlight that in white, but you know what? It is what it is. I'm not going to mess with this anymore. I'll call it a day. I'm already way over time on this one. I guess now only thing to do is to catch you in the next one and get some Inktober in, man. Go do your thing. Go do some arts. Be that music, be that drawing, you know, whatever, painting. Just create some stuff, man. Go create some stuff. Peace. We have this Posca marker, so I figured, she's like, well, I have a gold one if it's supposed to be gold. I mean, it's more of a yellow, but I think it's supposed to be gold in the game. So I'm going to try and see how this looks. Not super worried if it doesn't come out great. I'm going to hold this while I do it. That's kind of cool. It's not super bright, but that's okay. I think it gets the point across. And so you have it. That is the end. And by the way, this is Inktober 17, not 16.